Responsibility has to do with commitment and having a very strong sense of stewardship.
To be a responsible person, you have to take into consideration your actions and the repercussions of your actions.
To be responsible is to have your word, I will do this, I will finish it.
That's how you become responsible, realizing that you're not.
Saan ka pwedeng bumili ng pisong sukat, asin, isang stick ng sigarilyo, isang piraso ng papel, isang kilo ng simento, isang gatang ng bigas. Dito lang sa Pilipinas, only in the Philippines. Ahay! Ahay!
I'm Eileen Legaspi-Ramirez. I'm the curatorial consultant of Lopez Museum.
I'm Jamora and I'm a director. I usually direct music videos, television commercials, TV shows, and hopefully feature films soon.
Ako si Claro Ramirez. I do consultation for artistic direction and curation for the Lopez Museum.
Hi, I'm Sid Maderazo from 88 Story Films. I am a TV commercials director.
Artists are people who are able to think outside the box and out beyond convention and some degree of tradition. Then they do have a responsibility to other people who are not able to think that way.
As a director, you have the biggest responsibility to having the best vision you can for what you make.
Being responsible, I think, starts with self and how we look at ourselves.
The responsibility comes in part with meeting the objectives of that project. The most common denominator in all my works is to show, it's to do quality work.
Trying to just bring in a more contemporary feel. These were also commemoratives. We're responsible for bringing up concepts that help people consider what's in the museum in a more contemporary light.
What I love about music videos, even from growing up with them as a child, is that when I think of a song that I love, I just don't think of the music, I think of the corresponding images of the music video.
This is a room that reflects memorabilia. Like you paint pictures in memory of, in honor of. In curation, the space never regulates the work. It's the work that regulates the space.
My film school was during the shoots, and I would just sit beside these directors.
They're really art in advertising, and the obvious answer is yes. There is art in telling a story in 900 frames.
I had a pretty normal childhood, meaning on the weekdays we would be in school, then weekends we'd see my grandparents, usually on my father's side. On Saturdays, once in a while, I would hang out with the group nung grandfather ko, which was the Saturday group. And art was something that we took for granted basically kasi it was just there from the start. So the whole show is actually a takeoff on the notion of portraiture. It was good because I saw art a lot and we didn't really have that hang up so much about anyone wanted to be an artist, parang hindi naman major issue yan.
So ang kwento niya dyan parang ito naghahanap ng wall siya, naghahanap ng kalsada.
When I was already working, my grandfather very emphatically told me at one point na, alam mo, kulang nga nagsusulat tungkol sa art. I was a reporter, then I'd gone on to social development work. I was actually thinking of a career change at that point. I decided by then that I would take up graduate studies in art history. I was writing on art basically from the mid-90s all the way to now. By 2005, a classmate of mine who was the curator here at Lopez Museum was moving on to Singapore, and she asked me if I would take on her post here.
You know, it's a much more mature crowd than the ones who are actually trying to get into the museum at this point.
When I did however get hired to do curatorial work at Lopez Museum, I immediately felt that dealing with space, which is a very, very big part of the job of a curator, was something that I didn't have a real competence in. And his being an artist was instrumental for me in deciding to keep going because he agreed to help me. And so we teamed up. My specific work here in the museum is we're basically in charge of the exhibitions. We plan the exhibitions, which change twice a year. We try to evoke a certain literal, in a sense, intertextuality by bringing in texts that have been written beforehand. They don't have anything actually to do with the museum or the exhibit, but we feel if you juxtapose them or put them next to an object, then they suddenly trigger a conversation with them. And we organize lectures with the artists or talks so that people will know where they're coming from.
I actually wanted this whole text in front.
Walang curatorial studies programs just yet in the Philippines. There are courses like from where I teach now. We have a curatorship course in the undergrad level. So a lot of the curators here now practicing in the Philippines are really much more self-taught in a way. So dapat lagi siya nag-aaral, dapat nakaugat yung practice na both in the past and at the same time engaged siya with the present. And then you need to be out meeting people or at least trying to get acquainted with the various artistic practices that are current. At the same time, you have to have your art history. You need to have a good grasp of it.
And then that's by Sanso, very old work.
The best part of the job, you get to meet artists, you get to explore different kinds of art. Kasi parang lagi ka nagbabantay kung ano na yung ginagawa ng mga artist. So, pag meron kang na-spot na feeling mo, pwede tong kunyari, itabi mo yan sa work na nasa museum, then you kind of line up shows that way. Or meron ka mga binabantayan na practices na iba-ibang artists. So the ones that you find interesting and you think would be challenged by working in a space like this. And you're doing it because you're paid to do it. It's the ability to, introduce artists that weren't really maybe getting the sort of attention you felt that they should have been getting, and then you feel that they're doing something interesting and you can introduce it to a bigger public. That's something I get really great satisfaction from.
Music videos, I really just fell into it. It was really an accident. Growing up in the Jamora household in the 80s was really fun. I am the youngest of 5 children, and the oldest is 13 years older than me. So whatever they were into in the 80s, parang that became my education in terms of music and movies and everything. And it was really fun, and our parents were always working, so it was really just the 5 of us. Movies that were more than PG-13 I got to watch as a really young child. So I really got interested in movies, mainly because of exposure. In high school, I started doing syempre for mga group projects, sometimes you can make films or you can write papers. And I started using my dad's Video 8 camera to make films, kunyari, chemistry. That was sort of the beginning of that. And then when it came time to deciding what I wanted to do for college, I realized I wanted to go into films.
I never thought I had. Yung pala I was taking footage nung college na marami. So medyo in-archive ko pala yung buhay ko, which is kind of fun.
I became friends with the Eraserheads when I was in high school, when I was 16. And then I helped them with their fanzine. And they knew I was in college and taking comm. And then one day, sila Ellie and Raymond said to me and Quark, for their newest song, Mascara, they were going to divide into 4 directors per each member of the band. Raymond was Quark's, and then Ellie's was mine. Raymond knew my intention when I was shooting, so he's like, Maria, I didn't like what you made there. So parang, I'm sorry. Tapos sabi niya, no, okay lang, I have a band, Sandwich, you do our first video. My eldest sister had a drum kit, and I would see that drum kit I was a child and I always wanted to play it. I was like, I want to play drums. And so when it was my 18th birthday, I did not ask for a debut. I asked for a drum kit. Being a musician really helps in directing music videos because I understand song structure and timing, and I think it also helps me be an editor. I love that they are silent films. It really tests you as a filmmaker or a storyteller to be able to efficiently tell a story with no dialogue and no exposition, just purely just visually. I think that's so much power kasi you immortalize the music with that. Musicians also have a responsibility to making good music so that the music videos can be good to accompany it. The challenges are also budget. Another challenge is that there's a mindset of the record label and the artists that it's very easy to come up with a concept. And only a handful, and I really mean a handful, like less than my 5 fingers of bands will actually dip into their band fund. And other bands are just like, madali lang yan. And then they expect the filmmaker to make abono. So that's why in 10 years, the music videos I make are less and less. Locally, I would love to make an Eraserheads video again. Parang knowing what I know now, 40 videos down the line, I would love to be given another chance to make a video for them that's really beautiful and something I can be proud of. I would like to continue doing commercials because that is really the line of work wherein you can support yourself as a director. I really envy those types of directors who get to travel the world with and show the films that they have made. So I would like to do that because inherently at the end of the day, that's why I went to film school and that's why I took up film in college, is because I wanted to make films. So I would like to do that now.
I love working with mediums. I love learning from the elders, the senior artists, and the masters. There was one time that Mang Cesar Legaspi was teaching me a lot of things. He said that never let the medium master you. You master the medium. Title of the piece is Idol. So, seldom do you see Cesar Legaspi like this. Nung mga works niya nung unang time, medyo very social realist nung time na may sinasabi. And then, I love working with spaces as well. Ang ugat nun is me being a creator. It's just the medium that I use for creation that varies. In LaSalle, I was introduced to all of these arts. So, ganun na lang nangyari. Naging track na yon that I was always in the arts. I got into the University of the Santo Tomas under the advertising commercial arts. Parang I still wanted something that's more creative, so I went into a second course in the University of the Philippines, Fine Arts, painting major na. Year 2000, when I was awarded 13 Artist Award for the Visual Arts CCP. After that, I already asked the question, what happens next to the work? I already had lots of questions, so I started attending all of these seminars involving spaces or hosting the exhibition. That's why maybe I was drawn into the museum. What happens to the work after is dependent on the intention of the artist, because it's still the artist's option whether he wants to let go of the work or not. Sometimes ideas gets in the way of what is laid out. There are pieces sometimes that doesn't fall well with the exhibition. How does an exhibition start? We we start with the theme of the exhibition, of course. We try to dialogue kami ni Eileen kung sino yung pwede namin ilagay dun sa mga artists that we have encountered and who the best would represent the exhibition. I hear very much positive remarks from colleagues about how things were done, and even sometimes the exhibits that I have created. But I also encourage the critical side, wherein if people try to critique the work, I learn from it. When you put up a work for exhibition, it's for the audience to interact and to have their opinion about the work. You also have to see the backside of who you are, because you can never see what's behind you, and you can only see what's in front of you. And it's best that you can also trust the people that's behind you, who supports you for what you do.
I always consider myself as a TV commercials director and nothing else. Some people think that maybe TV commercial directing is just a stepping stone. Advertising is visuals play a very important role in making your viewers, sit up and call their attention. I think my background as a fine arts graduate, and my background is really drawing, is translated into film, and I have a strong sense of design. A lot of people may not realize that, but once they see and understand the process behind a 30-second commercial, they would be amazed at how much level of artistry is required to come up with these things. It's not just creating a nice commercial. The work should continue and translate to sales. That is the ultimate goal of a TV commercials director, not just to create a beautiful or visual feast. Yes! The budgets have grown smaller, the deadlines are much tighter, but the requirements are growing bigger. So it's a balance between, creativity and also in business.
Most of the time I spend it in client's office, agency.
I use a special program, a 3D program, where I can actually parang virtually shoot the scene. I can construct the set, a 3D set, and move around the set. So before I actually shoot, I've already shot it. And I love to prepare for meetings and presentations. Kinaka-career ko talaga yan. And for me, when you present well, you've already won half the battle. This is the most important stage for me. It's not even in the shoot. For me, the shooting, which comes after the feasibility and the pre-production meeting, the shooting for me is the most fun. Normally, I shoot using 2 cameras, and then I edit it. I edit it myself, so that's my whole setup. So you always find me behind the computer during a shoot with a microphone. So tawag na sa akin karaoke king. Yung boses ko lang narinig nila. To be involved in this kind of process, and I remain an anonymous person, but when I see people talking about it, it's a nice feeling when they actually recognize your work.
Walang himala! Nasa puso ng tao ang himala. Kayo ang gumagawa ng sarili ninyong tadhana.
Before, when I was single, if I see a storyboard with kids, you know, I always, no, I don't want to do this. But now I'm, as a dad, you know, when I see a board with kids or family, I do want to concentrate on that. I will say in advertising for a long time. I think if there's one thing that I know I do best, it would be directing. You know, nothing else. So I'm glad that, you know, that I am in this business. I feel that this is for me, it's the best job in the world.
I think we have a very conditional sense of responsibility. We feel very responsible for family. We don't have a sense of history that's very strong. Ganun yung tingin ko sa kung bakit ganun ka-conditional yung responsibility natin.
Responsibility comes from the beginning of how we can pass on what is ours to the next generation.
I've been noticing as the generations keep on coming that they are getting less and less responsible. More and more feeling of entitlement. Just doing things because it's easy. Responsibility
Comes with age. At least for me, that's what happened. I'm also more responsible now because of my work. More responsibilities mean bigger expectations.
You should be responsible with the education that that comes after the exhibition or during, because the process itself is part of learning.
It's your responsibility to think about your whatever project it is, whether it be an AVP, music video, commercial. And as a director, it is your commitment to taking the time out, to thinking about what you're making, trying to make it nice, trying to make it different, and always try to make it excellent.
That's what I'm looking at. Someone is asking questions, not just, you know, interested in fulfilling only a personal need and yeah, basically getting their art to reach out to other people.
Even though it's just 30 seconds of information, creative information on television, if it moves the viewers, if it affects them in any way, then I've done my job.
Being responsible, we have to look at self first, what we can achieve, not by what others can do for us, but what we can do for this small community as an individual.
If you are disciplined, then you are more responsible. We need to instill more discipline, I think. You know, not in the big things, just small things.
I do respect the fact that they are in their 70s and they still want to help people. And my dad is in the office until like 2 in the morning with patients, one-on-one, and so is my mom. And they still love their work.
My dad is not very vocal. He wrote me a really, really touching letter about responsibility, the value of money, the value of saving. He talked about that because that was the issue back then. And he talked about the values and being responsible for your own actions.
Being responsible is not to go beyond the space, like violating the space for the intention of exhibition. It has to be a collaboration between the exhibitors, the curators, and the institutions.
We're in a society which really requires like very radical degrees of change because of things like social inequity. Then an artist needs to participate in that kind of discourse and process of change.
Saan ka pwedeng bumili ng pisong sukat, asin, isang stick ng sigarilyo, isang piraso ng papel, isang kilo ng simento, isang gatang ng bigas. Dito lang sa Pilipinas, only in the Philippines. Ahay, ahay, ahay. Saan ka makakatagpo sa bawat banyo ng tabo? Sa halip ng hintuturo, ang panturo ay nguso. Bukang bibig, malapit lang, tatlong bundok man ang layo. Dito lang sa Pilipinas, only in the Philippines. Ahay! 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 Saan ka makakarinig? Palayaw na, makukulit. Yun yun yay, bok bok bek bek, lot lot len len at lek lek, my Lola baby.